Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen and I'm going to show you today how to make a meringue wreath on a stick so it's a freestanding decoration. Now I am going to start with a piece of parchment paper. I'm not using wax paper, this is parchment paper. I'm going to trace a circle. I just happen to have a pickle jar lid with me there because I love my pickles, not going to lie. So I traced it out. And then I'm going to flip it over and I realized that the circle was not dark enough. So I turned it back over and then just retraced it to make it darker. So now when I turn it over, I can actually see what I'm doing. So you can make any shape you want if you wanted to make a heart or a star or something like that. I just went with a circle because this was my first time trying this and I wanted to mess around with it a little bit. Now I am using meringue powder from Wilton. I'm using their instant meringue egg white substitute stuff. And I have not used this before. I've never used it before. I've always used egg whites, so I was kind of curious to see how it would work. So you put 4 tablespoons into your mixer, and then you add a half a cup of water to those 4 tablespoons of the meringue powder, and then you just start mixing it. I've got my whip or my whisk mixer handle thing on my mixer. And I ended up cranking up the speed a little bit, and it was just going and going and going, and I was not impressed, okay? So far, it just kind of made like mud. It wasn't really getting whipped up or frothy like I expected it to, like I'm used to egg whites doing it. And I also realized that the powder kind of flew all over the walls, too, so I'm just taking a moment to scrape it down, push it back in, and then see what happens. And I was using this meringue powder rather than egg whites because I live up in the Northeast and we've had a ton of rain and humidity lately. So I've heard that this powder deals better with humidity than regular egg whites. So I wanted to give it a shot. Now while it's going, it did eventually, after a little while, I cut out several minutes of it mixing, start to froth up a little bit. So I'm adding now 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar. I want to try making this again with powdered sugar because the grains never did fully incorporate into the meringue. It stayed a little bit gritty no matter how much I beat it, and I beat it to the point where it was almost making it into marshmallow. So I eventually just did stop. But in the meantime, I'm following the directions. I'm adding it 1 teaspoon at a time, letting it mix in. 1 teaspoon at a time, letting it mix in. I cut out a whole lot because 1 1/3 cups of sugar, 1 teaspoon at a time makes for a very long and very boring video. So as you can see, it actually is turning into meringue now. I was happy with it at this point. It started to behave. I finished putting my sugar in. I'm going to keep letting it mix for a little bit, and then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons now of the extract that I wanted it to taste like. I was making lemon meringues. So I added 2 teaspoons of lemon. Add vanilla, add whatever you want. All right, it's all mixed in. I let it go for a long time again because those darn sugar grains weren't completely dissolving away. But you can see how very, very thick it is. Now to make my wreath, I wanted to color my meringue. So I took 4 bowls and I just took some scoops of it into each bowl, and then I left some in my mixer just plain white because it is very pretty, and I gotta say it is very stiff and very, very thick. It was nice to work with. I'm mixing my colors now. I mixed a little bit of green with a toothpick into it, and then I just used a butter knife and I'm just stirring it in, trying not to totally kill the meringue. But I gotta say, it handled being mixed really well. It was okay with it. It didn't mind it too much. So I just mix it up until it's fully incorporated. I don't have any dark streaks anymore. I made some orange meringue as well. Gonna mix in some rose color. It came out a little more pink because I did only use a little bit of color. I didn't want to add too much in case it did affect the quality of the meringue. I've got my piping bags ready. This is just what I did. I just had a bunch of tips that I picked out. I had 3 large ones. I had multiple small ones. And I just scooped them into the bags randomly and just press it down on my counter to force that meringue to the bottom of the bag. Twist it off. A little bit came out. There you go. Ready to go. Gonna do the same thing again with my other bags. The only thing I did do was I had like a star tip that was a large one and a small star tip as well. So I made sure not to put the pink in the same star tips. So at least it would be a different shape and color each time. So again, just put it in, press it down with my hand till I get to the bottom of it. And I just did that for the rest of my bags. Now you can see I've got the blue, I've got the pink, I've got some green now. That's a big tip right there. There's the white because I did save some white in my bowl. Some more blue. And yeah, I've got my big pile there. I got all my colors. I think the only one I didn't do twice was the orange and the white. So 2 colors. Now, my parchment paper on the side that I drew on, I put 4 dots of meringue in the corner. And then I'm going to stick it down onto my cookie sheet that I've got there. And those little dots in the corners are going to help anchor it so it doesn't move on you and it stays nice and flat. And as far as the wreath design itself, I started with my 3 big tips first. I took the green, I just put a couple of circles. This was an open tip. Anywhere I felt like it. Took my pink, put some next to it. This was an open star tip, so I just put some here and there. And I did the same thing now with my blue, which was, I think, a closed star tip. I don't remember anymore. And I didn't like how I was making all just plops, so I did a little swirl there. And I just went back on top of the first one and just redid it. And now I'm adding my smaller ones. Now when I'm adding these, I'm just, again, going here and there all over the place, trying to mix up the colors to make it more colorful, trying to make it a little more interesting looking than just plain circles every time. And this white tip that I had chosen was not working out, again, because the stupid sugar grains didn't all dissolve. And the tip I was using was getting clogged. So I'm going to take care of that in a moment, but I'm just going to keep going a little bit more until then. You can see it just, coming out like little poots. It's not working right. So I'm doing a little bit more, again, just here and there. And when you're doing this, try to keep an even thickness as far as width and height. So if you're using a bunch of little ones, you got to make sure you pile them up so they're kind of the same thickness coming off of your cookie sheet and the same width around. So I got maybe about an inch thickness as far as the inside to the outside of the wreath. And this way, when you bake it, it will bake more evenly. You're not going to end up with like burnt sections where it was real thin or skinny or something. Now, getting back to that white tip, this thing screwed me up. I didn't like it, so I pushed the tip back into my bag, cut it off at the end there, so now the tip can come out. I'm cutting another bag, cut the tip to a proper size, or the tip of my bag, slide a new more open tip down in there, drop my first bag in, twist it up, and there you go, ready to go again. You don't have to scrape it all out and start over. And I'm sure a lot of you already know about this. You don't need to hear it, but in case you're new to it and trying to figure out how to switch your tips without, having to redo the entire thing, there you go. Now with my new tip, I'm able to go over top of the white messes that I made earlier, cover them up, give a few more accents, and look, it's really pretty, right? And at any point you could stop. I just kept going because I sometimes go too far and don't know when to stop. So I am adding a stick now. That was just a wooden dowel. I just twisted it and pushed it up underneath of the meringue that I got going there, so I didn't wreck anything. I'm going to add some more of my big pieces because I felt like they kind of got overlapped. It's pretty, right? And then you're going to bake it in the oven at 200 degrees when you're ready, for an hour. And then you're going to turn the oven off and leave it in the oven for another 1.5 to 2 hours, okay? So that is going to go in the oven and sit for like 3 hours. Now it's come out and it just lifts right up. It sits on the stick perfectly and it's super pretty, super colorful, right? Stick it on top of the cake and you're ready to go. Nice, easy decoration. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe. It does help me out as well. I've got a lot of other videos out there, so take a look. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.